Hey, everybody, I'm Audie Cornish, and this is The Assignment. And starting this week, we're going to basically enter that time of year that's about gathering with loved ones, eating good food, being grateful for all of it, and honestly, buying stuff. It seems like Black Friday starts earlier, lasts longer than ever. But it's still just one day. Giving Tuesday, which says something about whether we're really making an effort to be charitable. At the same time, everybody seems to be stretched thin. So nearly a quarter of American households are living paycheck to paycheck. Many of them are asking for help on social media. So with so much need, obviously it can feel overwhelming to figure out how best to help. So today I'm talking with Sarah Hershander, who covers philanthropy for Vox's Future Perfect, about how and why to put the giving back in Thanksgiving. Okay, Sarah, welcome to The Assignment.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
I should start a different way, which is, Sarah, do you believe Christmas decoration should be out before Thanksgiving or after?
That is a great question.
I'll be judging you the whole rest of the conversation around this.
I mean, I've been seeing them since Halloween, which I find a little bit too much.
Shakes fist at sky.
I'm going to say after. I think I'm definitely an after person. Love the lights, but
give us a minute.
Yeah,
give us a minute.
We can wait for the season. Makes it more special.
So we were talking recently about how people are feeling about this economy. And there were all of these social media posts where people were like, these grocery prices are too high. My hummus costs too much. This bell pepper is too expensive. There are a lot of people in need. And then we saw the CEO of GoFundMe on CNN talking about how people were using it for essentials. So I think between that and kind of some of the tenor of the news stories, I have this feeling of more people than ever need some kind of help. Mm-hmm. And if I'm in a position to help, how do I? Because honestly, now it's just kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to come and talk to you. Is this something you have heard, you are feeling? What does this sound like from the world of philanthropy?
Yeah. I mean, yes, both. And I talked to someone recently who described it as it feels like everything's on fire and I don't know where to point my hose. That resonates with me personally. I mean, I'm on social media. I do the doom scroll, and a lot of the time now, these doom scrolls also involve a lot of fundraisers, GoFundMe's for essential stuff. So somebody who can't afford their rent, who can't afford a really high medical bill, or maybe they care a lot about, a crisis that's happening around the world and they're trying to fundraise for that. So I think what's interested me in this topic is sort of this idea of people are doom scrolling and they're sort of getting desensitized to all of this. And that's a really big problem. That's the opposite of what we want to do. So I've been trying to, work on some pieces that help people sort through the chaos, sort through all of their feelings about this and kind of feel empowered to help. It's a fun thing. Giving is a cool, fun thing that gives you really cool aura, and more people should do it, especially right now.
I did not have aura farming on my bingo card for this conversation. I'm liking you bringing this energy. So this is the kind of news story I could do literally any year.
Yeah.
This year is different. And here's why. The government cutting grants, aid, support, funding. There's a whole world of people and services that we're getting help through the government inadvertently, right? Because it was funding various kind of nonprofits and projects. So that's one. And then two, the government shutdown. And then three, we've had this scenario now where more and more people are getting into debt with buy now, pay later, are struggling in one way or another. And they're not afraid. I think it's been a tiny bit destigmatized to turn to their public and say, guys, help me, in a way that I don't feel like you would panhandle your neighbors, so to speak, right? You wouldn't do it physically, but socially the stigma isn't there. So those are my three theories about why this year feels different. Break them apart. Tell me I'm wrong. Let's get into it.
I don't think you're wrong at all. I think, we can start with sort of the funding crisis. That's something that you're seeing affect everyday Americans, both in terms of, public programs. So things like SNAP, we saw that really scary time a couple of weeks ago when the government shutdown meant that 1 in 8 American families couldn't access the money they need to literally put food on the table every week. That's really scary. And then when we're talking about nonprofit organizations, which are the groups that these families go to when they need to get more food or when they need, medical help or anything, they're facing a really intense crisis this year. I think a lot of people don't realize that most nonprofits rely on government funding, that could be federal, state, or local, for a lot of their expenses. It is the single most important thing for them to cover their expenses, more than sort of your everyday donations. And so the fact that the current administration has been really, in some cases, fully just canceling grants, in some cases not fully fulfilling them. There are a lot of court cases still happening, so we're not sure exactly how to manage the budget this year. But the gist of it is a lot of nonprofits, most nonprofits even, are struggling with funding gaps because of those cuts. And a lot of these nonprofits are also dealing with higher prices, just like Americans have because of inflation. So Feeding America is spending a lot more on food than it used to. All of these organizations are also dealing with those higher costs. So that is, to me, that is like the number one thing that's made this year different in terms of actual funding. Giving is more important than it's ever been before because nonprofits are dealing with these gaps. I think you also mentioned sort of the GoFundMe economy, which I find endlessly fascinating. And
yeah, because it wasn't supposed to be a whole economy.
No,
right?
No,
it was supposed to
company.
be extenuating circumstances. Sometimes you need to, it's no longer extenuating circumstances. It's just life.
Yeah. Yeah. And in some cases, that's a good thing. Like, it's good that people feel comfortable, like, turning to their neighbors for help or turning to their virtual neighbors for help. And a lot of young people, I think, prefer to give in that way. Like, they prefer to give to like an individual they might be cynical about.
So if we're in this economy where you have one section of the economy, probably people who have stocks, who are doing really well, right?
Yeah.
They're traveling, they're spending a lot. They're buying the Apple iSock or whatever. And then you have this other group of people who are not doing as well, right? Like, whatever gains they're making are getting eaten up by these costs. What is the state of giving this holiday season? Like, how generous are people right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think over the past few years, something we've seen is that fewer and fewer people are donating. I don't have the stats for this year yet, but I'm a little bit nervous about them. There's a specific organization that like tracks giving each year, and they like do surveys to see like what percentage of Americans give. Right now, I forget the exact stat, but it's way less than it was like 20 years ago. And that's literally because people are like, they can't afford it. Or they're giving in ways that we're not capturing as well. So it could be because of that GoFundMe economy that we talked about earlier. But as a general rule, I think a lot of Americans just feel stretched thin. And they've also done surveys on sort of why people are giving less than they used to. And I think almost half of people who like are no longer giving said it's because they think that wealthy people should be giving more, which is super fair because we have seen this wealth inequality growing.
Yeah. So in the age of the billionaire, there's a little bit of like why do I have to give?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think we'll see. I will say during that SNAP crisis that we talked about earlier, I heard from Charity Navigator. He's one of these groups that is always like tracking giving through its website. Giving to food organizations, so like your local food bank, increased by like 580% that week. So I don't want to be too down about this.
Yeah, like people heard that as a need. We're talking 42 million people. I'm still shocked by this number who get SNAP benefits. And instead of saying in the past, I think there was much more like, oh, welfare queens, who cares? People really felt this as their friends and neighbors this time around. And you're saying they stepped up and we're giving
in a huge way. And so that's like something that's given me hope over the past few weeks. Like maybe we will see a lot of people giving back. And again, there's so many different ways to give back. Not all of it is captured by these statistics telling us that Americans are giving less. So hopefully we see that this holiday season too.
All right, so that leads me to Giving Tuesday, one of the many day gimmicks that exist around the holiday. Yeah. Not to be a hater, but I also just learned about Green Wednesday, which apparently the cannabis industry wants us to get into.
Wow.
Like we buy ahead so we can be stoned for the holiday. Don't ask. I didn't make this up.
Cool.
So instead of Green Wednesday, we're talking about Giving Tuesday.
Yeah.
And talk about how in an era where everyone needs $50. How do we think about who to give to, why, what we have, that kind of thing? I come from a Christian background, so it's like 10%, right? You tithe. But like, how do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, the 10% would be great if we brought that back to more people. To start, I don't want to give any sort of one-size-fits-all solution. I think everybody gives differently, and the best way to give is the one that you like. So somebody I spoke to compared it to like, find the exercise that you like, and that's the best exercise for you. Yeah. That's sort of how giving works too. Like, it should be fun, it should be meaningful, and it should like hit you close to your heart. That being said, I think number one for Giving Tuesday, what I hear from a lot of charities is it would be great if every Tuesday was Giving Tuesday, or maybe the first Tuesday of every month. So when you're choosing
the subscription model.
They do want the subscription model.
Literally everyone wants the subscription model.
I'm sorry to say. But it's true, because I think a lot of people get into it on Giving Tuesday, but then it's like, what about the rest of the Tuesdays?
Yeah.
What about the rest of the year? So I'm just going to throw that out there for people for it to percolate in people's
it makes
brains.
sense. Literally everything is pay monthly now. So it does make sense that they would want to have steady access to whatever you're giving them. And it's just funny because coming from public media, that was the whole model. So like the whole world has adopted this thing that we were always doing.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. You might also want to ask yourself if you want to address something. One of the people that I spoke to talked about this as sort of like hitting at the root causes. So more of like a downstream or like an upstream sort of cause where you're helping to sort of address why this exists in the first place. So that could be activism for some people, or it could be a group that's working on, education, something like that.
Well,
that's
can I pause?
Question.
What I hear you saying is there are other ways to give that are not money.
Oh, of course.
Well, you're saying, of course, but I don't think
people realize that.
I don't think people realize that. You feel like either if I am in a position of privilege to give, I should, and it should be money. And then the other extreme is, or I'm working at a food bank every weekend, right? It's almost people put themselves in this position of, if I can't like practically work there, then what's the point?
Yeah, that is not what we want people to feel.
You don't want us all trying to work there with our useless selves.
Well, you can go work there with your useless self. And I think like people sort of discount volunteering in a way that I think is really short-sighted.
Say more.
Because I think on one hand, you have the volunteer, you have the giver. Volunteering is so much fun. I was literally removing like Phragmites from my local reservoir a few months ago.
I don't know what any of those words mean, and it sounds amazing.
It's an invasive plant that was like messing up the reservoir. So they were like, we're looking for volunteers to like get into waders and like climb down into the reservoir and pull it out. It was such a cool, ridiculous, crazy experience for me as somebody who spends most of the day on my laptop. And it made me more engaged with that nonprofit. I wanted to support them. I wanted to support the work that they do. So like on one hand, volunteering is good because you're helping out. And there's a lot of stuff you can do to help out. Sometimes you really just need like some hands to pull out an invasive plant. And on the other hand, it makes you feel more connected to the organization that you're working with. I want people, when they're thinking about their giving, to think about it in a holistic way. This should be something enjoyable. It should connect you. It should not feel like a chore. It should feel like something that makes you more connected to your community and makes you feel empowered to address the issues that you care the most about. I do think that when we get lost in the sort of optimizing everything, we can lose the fun of it all. We can lose like the heart of it all. And we can also lose out on a lot of really good charities who just aren't good at measuring their impact or don't have an impact that's easy to measure. So I think it's important to sort of, again, do what resonates with you. If that means going on to GiveWell's website and giving to the one of 5 charities with like the cheapest way to save a life around the world. That is amazing. That's awesome.
That's an actual metric on this website.
That is, I mean, I don't know if it's called that, but that is the gist of it. Is sort of data. It's like efficiently saving a life. And oftentimes it's like a malaria net. That might be therapeutic food too. And again, this is like super important. There are real lives behind these numbers.
One last question for the people who can't afford it.
Yeah.
How should, I don't know, alleviate their guilt, or how should they think about where they are this year?
Yeah. I think it's easy to get sort of lost in the sauce of what we said before of like, if I can't give $100, $1,000, then I'm not able to give back. And that's just not true. I think a lot of these statistics really miss out on the ways that people give back to one another every day. There are many, many ways to give. Sometimes that's being a listening ear from your friend. Sometimes that's helping them move apartments. Sometimes that's lending your friend $20 when they really need something to grab for lunch. Like, there are so many different ways to give, and you don't have to be wealthy to give at all.
And give yourself some grace.
Give yourself some grace.
Sometimes it's your season. Sometimes it is not your season, and that's okay. Well, I'm looking forward to Giving Tuesday. Sarah Hershander, thanks so much for giving me a sense of how to go into it this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Sarah Hershander from Vox's Future Perfect project. Happy Thanksgiving, and we're going to be back next week.